Hello, everybody. It is, I don't know, about 3:15 in the afternoon on Friday, and this is the second numero dos review for today. We already did the monolith THX right there. Can you see it? This thing right here. You know, from this distance, it would be nice if I had, I don't know, a remote, something that the RME comes with, something that the Audio GD comes with, something that the SMSL a DAC, for some strange reason, has. But you know what? Monolith says you don't need it. Anyway, we just did that. Now, this time, we're doing the Hiby R6. And let's talk about the R6. This is going to be a wrap-up and everything together. Just one big, maybe not that big, video for the R6. My general impressions about the R6 are the following. I think it's a phenomenal little digital audio player. And there are a number of reasons why. Number one, I love, just really, really like the design for this thing. It's, you know, it's all aluminum, and whether you get the black or I think there's a red or a blue or something like, the black is just really nice. It's a matte black look, and it's got rounded edges. It looks stealthy. It looks like possibly a cell phone. It's running Android OS, Oreo. But what it does is, even though it's running full Android, it comes with the Hiby app pre-installed, which is good. Now, a lot of people have talked about the Hiby app, so let's talk about that. It's nice for Hiby to include a dedicated application. And I think if you are let me bring down the brightness on this real quick so that you can actually see this and it doesn't blind you. Hopefully. Hopefully it doesn't blind you. There we go. It's nice that Hiby provides an application for music on their own music player. If you get a DAP, a digital audio player, that doesn't have a dedicated high-res application for, you know, playing high-res files, that's a problem. Because what you want to do, I would think, is if you're going to buy the player, the company that makes the player should also make the appropriate application and should have it fine-tuned for whatever is in that device. So if it's an ARM chip, optimize the app to make full use of that ARM chip with whatever RAM is pre-installed, so that you get the best experience possible from that proprietary application. That's how it should be. And Hiby has done a fairly good job of doing it. Now, a lot of people talked about how great the Hiby app is for Android. I don't have an Android device other than this. And I don't use Android. I don't particularly like Android. So going into Hiby, it's an Android app. And Android apps, in my experience, haven't been the most user-friendly. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't user-friendly applications, but because I'm stuck in the iOS world, I only know of iOS devices and iOS applications, and I find them to be fairly simple, because it's made for simpletons, clearly. This is a good app. It plays well. It works well. There is nothing phenomenal about this particular app. It doesn't do anything that other applications of similar nature cannot also do. You have your general method of organizing. You have your title, folder, albums, artists, all sorts of stuff. I mean, anything. This has the same stuff that any decent digital media player application should have. Okay, there's nothing special about it. What you can do that some digital media players do not allow you to do out of the box is that you can use the built-in EQ within the app. So you don't actually have to leave the app to start doing the EQ. So you can launch the app, start playing your high-res files, pull down on the menu, go into the EQ setting and start EQing, which is good. That way you're not installing a third-party application, another application to do EQ, and now those two things have potentially compatibility issues. It's all done in here. Okay, so here's how you bring up the EQ. what you do is swipe right, and as you swipe right, there's this other submenu that shows up. It has your user login and all the other stuff. And then you have the equalizer option here. You just click on the equalizer, and then all of a sudden the equalizer stuff comes in. And this is multi-band. It goes from, where does it go from? 31 hertz. I don't know why it's stuck at 31 hertz, but whatever. 31 hertz all the way to 16,000 hertz. And you can turn the equalizer on or off. You can do custom, or you can do a pre-installed filter. You can do pop, blues, rock, jazz, metal, dance, classic, or voice. Or you also have the custom. Now, there are some equalizer applications that have many more options than what Hiby provides. And here's the bottom line. No matter how many filters a EQ application actually does provide, for the most part, it's going to be a very minute difference in sound, if at all. For example, let me show you, which one should I use? I should probably use, you know what, I'll use this. This is the Plenu D2. And I really like this player because it's so pocketable. I mean, here's the D2 compared to the Hiby R6. And if you just want something that you put in your pocket and go, this is the one. By the way, I had this off and this just turned on, but that's how fast the turn on is. And you can do many filter options from the Plenu player. So the Plenu D2 is just a player. It doesn't have Android built in. It's got its own OS that only runs the music player. That's it. So you can go into that and, oops. And once you start playing a song, come on, let's start playing a song here. You can bring up the filter options on this. If it will let me. There we are. Come on, here we go. So bring up the filter options. And there are many, many filter options that you can choose from. It goes a pre-installed user filter options 1, 2, 3, and 4, whereas on the Hiby it doesn't have presets, at least nothing that I could find readily within the app. Now you can set custom, but that's the custom. There is no renaming as far as I can tell. I went through the menu system and I can't easily find it. If there's some other way to do it, then that may be the case. But as far as I can tell from my use of the app, there's no user-defined custom setting, at least nothing that I can find within this particular app itself. But the Plenu line, when they use their own built-in app, they have something called Jet Effect 5. And I think that's the highest version, Jet Effect 5. I think there might be something higher than that now, but I don't know. And so you can go into any one of these and pre-select your band. So it goes from 80 hertz all the way to 13,000 hertz, so 13 kilohertz, which is a smaller band, obviously, than on the Hiby. That being said, let's go back, come on. There are many, 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 many filter options on this. There's normal, there's Viva 2, Viva La Zapata 2, rock, jazz, classic, ballad, pop, club, funk, hip-hop, techno, blues, metal, dance, rap, wide, X-bass, hall, vocal, maestro, feel the wind, mild shore, crystal clear, reverb room, reverb club, reverb stage, reverb hall, reverb stadium, reverb chamber, reverb room 2, reverb club 2, reverb hall 2, reverb auditorium. Boy, we're just getting into the reverb stuff, aren't we? And so on and so forth. Now, some of this stuff is like kind of weird, like the reverb options. I'm not really why, but you still have a lot of options for filters that are pre-done, pre-built, versus on the R6, which you just saw, there's only a handful. But the greater, I think, effect of the Plenu Jet Effect is that you have 4 user-defined EQs. Yes, the band is narrower than on the R6. However, because you can fine-tune, and let's say you listen to like 4 types of music, 4 genres of music, and you know exactly how those 4 genres of music you want them to sound. Each one you want something different. For, I don't know, dance songs, right? Pop or dance songs, you want a boost in the bass. We go into user 1 telling yourself user 1 is the bass option. You bump up the bass. User 2, you want, that's all piano based or orchestral, and you want to hear all the details in the higher frequencies. You boost that up in user 2. User 3, you want to use for, I don't know, vocals. And anytime that you listen to vocal-centric songs, you want that. So you hit on that, and automatically that will set up because it's pre-installed or preset. And user 4, whatever. You can come up with whatever you want. That is the beauty of something like the Plano. And it's all done. It's ready for you to go. It takes a little bit of setting up, but once you get it set up, it's done. The R6, as I said, doesn't have that feature, and I really, really wish it did, because it's those little things that make the device either enjoyable to use or not enjoyable to use. It's drinking time. We'll wait. We'll wait. We have plenty of time in the world, Charlie. It's always like when I'm recording that he decides he's going to just jump up and do something loud for no other reason than to be somewhat distracting. Oh, come on, man. Come on. You can do it. Come on, you're almost done. Oh, thank God. So that's the biggest difference here is when the small things like that, the usability options, hey buddy, when the usability stuff comes along and there are certain things that you really want the device to do, but it's not implemented inside the player, that thing, if it doesn't break the deal, meaning if it doesn't prevent you from going out and buying it, it certainly makes it less enjoyable than it would be otherwise. At least that's my position. Because in all other respects, the R6 is a fantastic player. It is fast, it is responsive, the touchscreen works great. I mean, I can't wake it up by touching the top of the screen. I think that's an Apple implemented thing. And I wish it did, because then I could, mess around with it a lot better than having to hit the button. The app works perfectly. It's smooth. It has yet to crash on me. The Hiby app is stable. It plays all my FLAC files. It plays all the MP3 files. It plays all high-res files that I have. It's supported widely. It's a good player. It sounds good. Now, we'll get to the sound in a couple of minutes, but going back to the user experience, because that's integral to this, one thing that I really wish was better implemented would be kind of a way to trim down Android. Now, they give you a full-blown Android experience. You can install whatever you want on here. I've got Chrome, the Play Store, obviously you need the Play Store. I had no problem downloading Spotify or Tidal or YouTube app. I have this background thing where, if you can see, the trees are swaying. You see that? It's just a background effect that I download. So I can do whatever I want that I can do on any other Android device. But what's the benefit of that? I don't understand. I would prefer, just so I could save battery life and I could trim this down, make it easier to use, is all I want is a dedicated music player. Support Android in a way that you can install Tidal, Spotify, YouTube, all that other stuff if you need to, but you don't need to have the full-blown Android experience, including the developer options and all that stuff, because I don't really understand why you would want that on a device that only is supposed to play music. There's no way to text anybody unless you have an app installed and you can do it through Wi-Fi, obviously. It's not a cell phone. I mean, you wouldn't really surf the internet with this. I really wouldn't surf the internet with this. I've done it on Chrome, and I have not really enjoyed the process. And I would prefer much more to have it on my iPhone 10 because it's a much faster, much more responsive device in comparison to the R6. Now, what about competitors? When you get into about the R6, R6 Pro price range, you have some additional options. Now, the Pleno D2 is about $300, $250 to $300, depending where you get it. It's got balanced and regular 3.5 millimeter. It's a very, very good device, in my opinion. In comparison, you have, for the price of this, which is $599, retail $599, you get USB-C, which I love. I adore, and I applaud Hiby for implementing USB-C. More manufacturers should implement USB-C. You know why? Because I said so. It's the wave of the future. Please just comply with this. It's not just me asking, guys. Everybody's asking for USB-C. Stop putting in the stupid micro USB stuff like this. And by the way, this is the Astel & Kern SR15. We'll get to this in a few moments. This uses the micro mini USB. I hate the micro mini USB port. I hate the fiddly little thing. You got to get it just right. And half the time, I have it upside down. It's a minor frustration. I understand. I get it. But things are moving to USB-C, and when you're charging this amount of money for devices that are currently being, are modern devices like 2018, 2019, put in the USB-C. Astel & Kern, put in USB-C. Now, I'm not so worried about Pleno D2 not having a USB-C, because that's not really of much concern to me. It's not that type of device. First of all, it's not in the same price range, really. And second of all, it's a tiny device. I just like the way that it is. I'm not too worried about this. But more higher spec devices, devices that are indeed much more expensive, should start implementing current IOs. And stop going back to 10 years ago, 15 years ago, using this sort of stuff that, come on guys, let's move on to the future. Okay, so beyond the little rant about the USB-C, which I do love, by the way, you have line out, coaxial and line out, which is a singular port, so it shares it, which is good. Then you have the 3.5 millimeter, and then you have balanced. So really, this is excellent for if you have IEMs. Just plug it right in, and assuming you have a 2.5 millimeter IEM terminator. You can also use 2.5 millimeter for headphone. You have to special order the 2.5 millimeter most of the time. I have yet to get a pair of headphones that comes with a balance cable, first of all, and second, well, that's not true. The Focal, which is that? The Clear, the Focal Clear come with a balance cable. But it is, they don't come with the 2.5 millimeter balanced. You have to get that aftermarket, in my experience. But once you get it, go ahead and plug it in there. You can use this as a digital audio converter, a DAC. So if your computer if you don't have one, if you don't have the monolith, for example, you don't have the SMSL, you don't have the JDS Labs, you don't have the RME, you don't have all the other stuff, right? You plug in USB-C, plug it into your computer. There's an option to use this as a USB-C DAC. Use that option if that's what you want to do, and then there you go. Plug in your 3.5 millimeter, and you're ready to go. One thing that I wish this really had to take this experience one step higher has to do with the volume buttons. It's up and down volume buttons. I wish it instead had a wheel like the Astel & Kern, because it's a lot easier to just kind of turn this than to... Minor nitpick? Yes. Absolutely minor nitpick. Buttons work fine. This works fine. It's not a big deal. But in my preference, I would prefer to have the wheel than to have this. Okay? In all other respects, I think the buttons are placed perfectly well. The volume buttons are on one side, so you do not confuse them with the play buttons here. Forward, backward, play, pause. The power button's on there. It may have been perhaps a better idea to put the power button on top so that you have a triad. You press the power button on top to wake, sleep, whatever. volume buttons on the left and then the play buttons on the right, so that there's a clear delineation. Every once in a while, I will say, every once in a while, I'm trying to hit the previous track button and then I accidentally hit the power button, because they're close, but you know, fingers width of each other, essentially, an index finger width of each other, pinky finger width of each other. Now there is a slight size difference between the buttons here. So the forward and back buttons are slightly smaller than the play button, just ever so slightly. And all three are slightly smaller than the power button. But the power button, strangely enough, is the same size as the up and down volume buttons on the left side. You know, not really an issue, but just pointing that out. Okay? Now, what about sound? Well, let's just talk about the sound right now. I'm going to compare with two headphones. Two. I've got the 660. This is not the 660. Where's my 660? Where did I put the 660? Huh. Where did I put the 660? I don't remember where I put the 660, frankly, because it's right in front of me. There it is. This is the 569, which is a great pair of closed back Sennheiser headphones. We'll get to that review at some point in the future. 660. I have the 660, and then I have the HP 50s. Here we go, HP 50s. Hooray, HP 50. Look, it looks so shiny. So let's start off with the HP 50 first. This is not a true sound test, but I want to be able to tell you in real time here how I perceive the sound. And I'm just going to do a very brief, casual overview. We're not going to make this very long because we're already about 22 minutes into this. Oops. Oops. Keep dropping this thing. Okay, so let's go into the Hiby app and let's go into my albums. I have not updated this. I don't have all my songs on here. Let's go to Days Are Gone and do... Let's not do Days Are Gone. Let's do Something to Talk About and do Want You Back by Haim. When you start playing, there's an audible clicking sound as the circuits kind of do their thingy, which is good. It's nice to know that you know, there's some mechanical stuff going on in here. The volume increase comes up with this ever increasing concentric circles, and you can control the volume much faster this way than by clicking on the side, because that's a one-step increment, whereas here you can go as loud as you want, as quickly as you can get the app to do it. And on the HP 50, at about 72 out of 100, it's very, very, very loud. Now, let's say we want to do EQ on this. The song is playing, and let's play it at 20% volume. One of the things, by the way, once you bring up the volume thing, everything else blacks out in the back, and you can't do anything until it fades away. So one of the things you can do is you can either increase the volume by doing this and then tap away, meaning this comes up once you hit the volume button, either one, and then you can start fiddling around with the volume you want. Now, if you let go and not do anything, after a couple of seconds, it fades away and you're back to the app. The alternative is you get to the volume you want and then hit on any dark spot, and now it's back. So that's one little trick. Once you're in the volume area, you can still skip songs by hitting the back or the side buttons here, either way. So it's not as if you have zero control of it, it's just that you don't see what's going on in the app itself. Okay, so now that we are at the volume I want, let's say I want to do EQ. What do? Well, you swipe from the left. Come on now, don't do that. And you go to equalizer, Nope, wrong one. Equalizer. And you can do the custom EQ if you want, or you can go into the presets, blues, rock, voice, metal. You get the idea. And then once that's said, you can, tailor it to your liking as you want, or you can just reset to the original. The other thing is you can actually see in kind of a waveform what's going on up here and where it's being affected. So maybe you can tell. So I'm going to reset this. I'm going to set it to, let's say we do custom. Everything is flat. Everything is flat here. And let's say I want to increase around the 8K area. And I increase the 8K. And watch this. And as the 8K increases, you see there's now a bump in the waveform. And let's say I want to increase the 500 hertz area. Well, I do the 500 hertz. And now you can see that the waveform goes up. So now that's a good visual representation of the whole waveform. And I like that. How is the equalization? It does affect the sound, for sure. And if you want to play around with it, the best way to do it is just in the customs, not so much in the presets. The presets do have their own particular, notes to them, their own tonality. So they are different. Whether or not they're different enough for you is your call. And whether or not they're good is also your call. Now remember, this is Hiby's version of what metal EQ should sound like, or what pop EQ should sound like. Don't take it as rote. Don't say, oh my God, the headphones are terrible, or my music file is awful, or whatever, just because you selected that preset and it doesn't sound the way you expected it to. This is just Hiby's way of saying this is how we think it should be. Feel free to experiment. That's the whole point of having the EQ, is that you can experiment. And because there's not a whole lot of bands here, you can experiment to your heart's content for a long time until you find something that works for you. The problem, and I say this again, is that there's only one custom. There's no, there's no 4 presets like there are in the Plenu. Any of the Plenu, not just the D2. Okay. You can do plugins for this if there are plugins for the Hiby app. I don't have any. You can scan music. So if you have an SD card and you just updated the music, you pop it into the machine, hit scan music when you get into the app, and it'll rescan all the music. There's a sleep timer. You can go to quick guide, settings, all that other stuff that you can easily figure out once you get this. But you can see the responsiveness of this app. It's very, very, very quick, as it should be. While you're in here, in the app, just like with any Android device, you can easily access your, general settings from pulling down from the top. You can go into audio settings at any time, wherever you are, you can go into audio settings. And when you get into audio settings, go on. Can I go into audio settings now? It would be funny if it's this point where the app just crashes on me. And I said that it wouldn't. Okay. When you go into the audio settings, you can do the multifunction output. And so you have to, so here's what happens. You can use the multifunction output either as line out or SPDIF. And if you're going to take this, so here's the idea. Let's say that you have an external portable tube amp. Here, I'll show you. Okay. So let's say that you have the Little Bear B4 and you want to get that tubey sound. Well, I would recommend that you not really do the 3.5 millimeter. Instead, try to get a clean out by using the line out. And what you do is you take the 3.5 millimeter from the line out, put it into the line in, into the B4, and now you can use that as a much cleaner source, essentially. Now, is there a big difference between the two? Not on the B4, not that I could really tell, but just so you know, that's probably the preferred way to do it. If you have some other external amplifier, you don't want to use the amplifier in here. Let's say you want to use the amplifier on an X Duo. Well, you do in-out, you put it in the auxiliary, and you take that out from the line out, and now you've got your amplification through here, which will be greater amplification than it would be on the R6. Or if you have another tube amp like this one, this is the Fostex, it's got a weird name. If I could find it, what is the name for this thing again? It's HPV something. It's human papilloma. It's a sexual disease. That's what they call it. The HPV-4. These are no longer made, and they're incredibly difficult to find. But I tell you this, when I do my review of this item, this thing does amazing things. This does what the dark voice can do. This is really phenomenal stuff. And this blows the B4 out of the water every day of the week. Anyway, so that's why you want to use the line out. But if you want to go to SPDIF, you got to go into the audio settings by swiping down, go into the audio settings, and you have to select line out or SPDIF. Now, while you're here, you can also do the channel balance, left or right, DSD gain compensation. I have it at +6 at the moment. Max volume, so you can actually preset max volume in here. If you want to make sure you don't blow your headphones or your eardrums, let's say you're doing IEMs, you have IEMs, and you want to be extra careful with your IEMs. You want to make sure that you don't surpass a certain volume level. Well, you go into the audio settings, at the very bottom it says max volume, and you can change the max volume. It goes all the way to 100, which is the max volume, obviously, and you can change it to any other number below 100 that you want, so that when you actually start using your IEM, you don't accidentally go beyond that number. The software simply will not allow you to do it. You have to go back in and change it again, which is helpful. So I've set it to 47, and now let's see what happens. Now I can't go beyond 47, no matter how much I try. I can go below all I want, but I can never go over 47. And that's a nice safety feature to have if you're afraid you're going to screw something up. And just go back and set it back to 100 whenever you're ready. That's a nice little thing to have at your disposal at any time, wherever you are on this player, whether it's in YouTube, Tidal, Spotify, or the Hiby app, or you're browsing Chrome. It doesn't matter. You know, it just suddenly hits you, oh my gosh, I want to make sure that I don't blow up my IEMs. Go right into the setting immediately and take care of it. It's a very painless process. Swipe down, hit the button, and you have access to all that stuff. Perfect implementation, in my opinion. Now, the sound. I think that the sound is fairly neutral for the R6. I don't hear any coloration to the music. It's fairly clean. I don't hear any noise through the 3.5 millimeter. Now, I don't have a 2.5 millimeter balance right now that I can use. It's probably at the office. So I can't tell you exactly right now how the 2.5 millimeter sounds. Does it sound a little bit cleaner? Yeah, a little bit. I mean, there's not a huge difference, in my opinion, between the 3.5 millimeter and the balanced. Indeed, I would say that there's not a significant difference at all for me to worry that I must use the 2.5 millimeter all the time. It's a convenience, and if you want it, you got it. So it's nice to have. Let's talk about the SR15. Why? Because at MSRP, the R6 is about $599, whereas the SR15 is also at $599 now. And so these two things are competing with each other in price. And so we might as well talk about it if we're going to go through this. And let me get need this little converter thing because I'm going to put on the 660S in a few moments. Build-wise, you can see fairly clearly that there is a significant difference between these two, the R6 and the SR15. The thing that'll jump out to you first is like, why is the SR15 crooked? Well, that was Astle & Kern's way of saying, hey, we're different. The way that they describe it is because your hand is formed in a certain way, this is the natural way to hold something, the screen is more naturally facing you compared to this, and you have to tilt it to make it look. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. I've never had a problem with any of my devices that are, look straight. For them, they think this is more natural. Okay, that's fine. Volume is through this knob here. Power button's on the top, balanced, and you have the 3.5mm out, and then you have the micro mini USB thing. You have play pause buttons here, which are infinitesimally smaller compared to the Hiby. I mean, this is kind of silly. Do you see the size difference? It's the buttons, the play pause buttons on the the SR15 are half the size of the play pause buttons of the Hiby. And there are no other buttons on here. So it's a little irritating that the buttons are so small and they're all grouped together. I mean, you're probably not going to mess this up too often, but they have all this room and they decided to make these things incredibly tiny. I'm not sure why they did that. Power on the machine, and the battery's dead. Another problem. The battery between these two, the Hiby tends to last significantly longer, in my experience, than the Astle & Kern. And by significantly, I can say from my usage, just common usage, about 2 or 3 hours a day, the R6 tends to last about 1.5 hours to 2 hours longer with everyday usage than the SR15. I don't know why that's the case, because the SR15 is a trimmed down version of an OS. I mean, it's running Android to an extent, because you can install Android sideload Android apps on this, allegedly. I haven't done it, so I don't know for sure, but that's what I've read online. Let's see if I can plug this thing in somewhere. I'm going to do this. Hold on, I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. So I had to spend a couple of minutes charging this to 2%, and then I plugged it into my juice box that I've been lying around for a little bit. And so now it's charging. So back to this. The reason we're comparing these two is because the R6 and the SR15 are very similarly priced. Size-wise, you're going to get much more screen real estate from the R6. You are also you will also get the full Android experience, or nearly enough, with the R6 versus the Astle & Kern. Now, when you boot up the Astle & Kern, it automatically puts you into the application for the songs. So their music playing application, which is all this is. Now, there is supposedly a way to sideload additional Android apps like Spotify and Tidal. I haven't done that yet. If that is possible, then I'm going to have to check on that. But the responsiveness for this is also excellent. I would say it's about as fast as the R6. I don't see any lag here whatsoever. Pulling down from the app itself, from the R6, or not the R6, from the SR15, you have the option of dimming. Are you kidding? You don't want to do this? There we go. You have the option of dimming the screen. You also have the option of doing EQ, so you can get into EQ immediately if you want. You can do Pro EQ once you start playing a song. You can also lock the wheel here so it doesn't change once you hit this wheel lock. Bluetooth Wi-Fi functionality immediately. You swipe right, left to right, and then you can get to your particular song based upon songs, artists, playlists, favorites, CD library, all sorts of regular stuff. And you can also get into the settings. You can get the equalizer on or off. We want to turn that on, obviously. You can do gapless on or off, line out on or off. Line out, same thing as I said with the R6. You can do balance, left or right. Do notification panel, what types of notifications you can actually get. USB mode, MTP. You can do DAC input, device music through USB DAC connected device. Media device, send media files through USB disk. And, you know, just the normal, everyday stuff. Whether or not that's worth it to you is totally up to you. Whether you think that having the SR15 with no real Android experience versus the R6, which does give you the Android experience, whether you want to go through Android and care about Android, or you care for the SR15 and Aston Kern's design choices and, you know, kind of like their sound preferences, what do you prefer? That's totally up to you, especially since they're so closely in price. Or are they? We'll get to that in a little bit. Now, although I really like the SR15 because it's compact and it just gets you what you need to do song-wise, you just want to listen to music, it does a good job, I think that it's overpriced when you compare it to the R6. Right now, if we're doing price comparison alone, $599 MSRP. Well, the R6 gets you substantially more for that $599 than the SR15. I would submit to you that you're paying a hell of a lot for name on the SR15. Whereas with Hiby, you get, you know, not only do you get actual physical controls that the SR15 kind of shuns, but on top of that, you get full Android. You get to load whatever device or app you want without having to worry about side loading and developer support from Astro and Kern. You have a fairly robust ecosystem with Android apps. So if you don't like the Hiby app, you can install some other music player app, whichever one you prefer. Whereas with the Astro and Kern, you're stuck with what you got. You have a dedicated line out and a balanced out, whereas here the headphone is the line out, so it's a dual line out with headphone. They've implemented both 2-in-1, but it's not a SPDIF. The SPDIF is on this, not on this. You do get balanced on both. Whether or not you care to have Android is really the deciding juncture, and the battery life, like we talked about just a few minutes ago. Which one do you prefer over the other? Do you want the battery life of the R6? Do you want less battery life of the Astro and Kern? Do you want the name recognition or do you want the functionality? That's your call. Sound-wise, I think the R6 is probably on par with the SR15. I mean, I'd have to do a side-by-side comparison at some point. But my general impression is that the R6 is as clean as the SR15. Now, I think I get a little bit more clarity out of the SR15 than I do with the R6. EQ aside, we're not doing EQ. Everything is flat, normal settings. I would submit that I think that the SR15 is slightly, ever so slightly cleaner than the R6, playing the same files, same FLAC files. Is that minute difference worth it, where you shun all the other features that the R6 provides? Well, that's kind of up to you. You choose what is in your best interest. One thing I will point out, that the SR15 doesn't have a high-res audio sticker on the side like the Chinese stuff does, you know? So if you really want the high-res sticker, not only does Hiby give you the high-res sticker on the product itself, but they give you 2 extra stickers you can place on whatever you want, you know? You can put it on your dog, a high-res dog. You can put it on your water bottle, high-res water bottle. You can put it on your fridge, which, you know, the Astro and Kern doesn't come with any of those stickers. Ultimately, what is my position regarding the R6. I think it's phenomenal. I think it's a really good DAP. One issue that I have, and this is really with all modern DAPs, is that everybody is trying to get on this wagon about the best, the best, the best, the best. You have to do the best. You have to do the best. You know, what's the newest DAC you can implement? You know, I wish there was a way to get a choice of DACs for players. And I know that, you know, DACs are pre-built, they're soldered on, and I know it takes a lot of manufacturing. I understand that. I get it. But I would like there to be options available where if you want an AKM DAC, you can get an AKM DAC. If you want a ESS DAC, you can get an ESS DAC. If you want a Burr Brown DAC, you can get a Burr Brown DAC. I wish there was a way to implement that sort of selectivity in a product. It's like when you go online, you buy a Dell computer, an Apple computer, you click on the computer and then you can modify, you can get a new CPU, you can add memory, blah, 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 and then you get your computer. And I know that takes a lot of manufacturing, and I understand that that increases cost. And it's one thing to sell computers from Apple and Dell, and it's a completely different thing to sell music players that are a very niche product. But I think that would be, if there was a way to implement that, I think a company that does it and does it well would probably see their profits increase because of the ability to get different DAC modules. You can say the FIO has something like that. They can do the DAC module, but they're not. You know, I'm not fully convinced about the DAC module implementation. Also, it's pretty expensive to get the player and then the DAC module. But anyway, that's minor stuff. Let's end by talking about the difference between the HP 550, which are HP 50. That's what I have on my head. Between that and the HD 660S on this. So as I said, the R6 produces very clean, clear sound. Great amplification for the HP 50. Now let's switch, and I'm going to put on the 660S. Here we go. Currently, I'm at, what's my volume level? 30. And on the HP 50, the 30 volume setting was very loud. On the 660S, it's casual listening volume. How loud do I have to take it in order to get, you know, uncomfortably loud? Let's see. $90. I would say 90. 90 is the uncomfortable volume levels, which means that you can push, you still have a little bit of headroom left. If you really want to screw up your eardrums, you can still do it. But you can see that the 660S can be driven by the R6. Now, I don't have a 6XX that's at work. But if you have a 660, then you should know that the R6 can drive it. And it maxes it out, you know, where it's uncomfortable for me at 90 volume out of 100. That may be too loud for some people. It might not be loud enough for others. That's your own personal preference and your ability to hear. If you have other headphones, well, check the specs. What's the impedance and what's the sensitivity? And if it's similar to or better than the HD 660, then you're going to have at least the same experience amplification-wise to the 660 that I just had. Now, with the open back, now the 660 has kind of a tiny bit of energy, more energy in the higher frequency than the HP 50. And I can hear that. Now, it only comes out at the higher volume, obviously, because it's harder to drive the 660 on this than it is the HP 50. We've already determined that. But I still get more energy from the music through the 660 because of the way the 660 is tuned versus the, less emphasis on the higher range on the HP50 in comparison. Clean, clear sound. And right now I'm on, which song is this? You Never Knew by Haim from Something to Tell You album. Very neutral, I would say. There's no emphasis on any particular frequency. The mids, the vocals come out very clean, clear, without distortion. I think that the bass impact on this is not exceptional on the R6. So it's not an emphasized bass at all. I would say it's more neutral and closer to flat response than either direction. So there is no emphasis on the bass, and I don't think that the bass is really de-emphasized either, so rolled off. I would say that the R6's representation of the bass is fairly neutral, fairly flat. Midtones, I would also say, are fairly neutral, depending on the song, and it depends, really depends on the file that you have on here, whether it's compressed MP3 or it's FLAC or it's AIFF or whatever else you're using. I would say that in some songs, the mids seem slightly more forward, and in other songs, it just seems relatively flat, meaning there's no emphasis to the mids, and it's as if they were recorded from the studio and given to you directly. That's the impression I would suggest. As far as the higher frequency, I've listened to the 660 numerous times, many times. I don't think that the R6 colors the music in any way that would make me think that the sound is not how the sound is being altered here on the player rather than the headphones, which is the way it should be, right? If people who want just true natural sound from their player and want to experiment with headphones want their player to be neutral, and so they can clear their attention of EQing on the player to get it neutral. They don't want to worry about that. They would rather experience the music and color the music through the representation on the headphone itself, the way it's tuned. And I would submit to you that in my experience, the R6 is good at that it does in fact not color the music. It's flat, it's clear, undistorted. That's my impression. Sounds good on the 660, sounds great on the HP50. I would submit also, however, that the 660 I think sounds better overall on a desktop amplifier than it does on the R6. But in contrast, the HP50 sounds as good on the R6 as it does on a desktop amplifier. So the headphones absolutely do matter, as they would always matter with respect to a portable player. Okay? I hope this has been of some help. What is my conclusion? What do I think about the R6? I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think the R6 is a great player, especially in the price bracket. So if you're, assuming that the price doesn't come down, what are you left with in a similar price range? Well, you got the SR15. You have, I think, the Plenu P2. Right? Is this the P2 or PM2? This is the P2, which is similarly priced to the R6, but I think the P2 is slightly less expensive, $50 to $75 less expensive than the R6. The features that you get with the R6 are good. There are minor adjustments that I would make, and that's all software implemented that Hiby could in fact take care of if they wanted to. And that would be, number one, having more EQ options. Number two, having the ability to do presets in the EQ and then saving it as user presets 1 through 4, like on the Plenu D2 and on any of the Plenus, really. I would take a cue from the SR15 from Astral and Kern players and have a scroll wheel on the side, because to me, I would prefer to have a scroll wheel to adjust volume than I would doing the buttons. Some people may not find that bothersome at all. Some might say that that's not even an issue. That's fine. I like the fact that it's USB-C. I love the responsiveness of this. I love the screen. It's so nice and vibrant. The sound is clear, undistorted for the most part. Does it compare to a desktop amplifier? I wouldn't go that far. Okay, so I wouldn't say that the Pocket the Pocket Hiby R6 is to the same caliber as the JDS Labs LDAC or a Monolith or the Audio GD. You know, is it as good as a Magni 3? Yeah, I would say it's as good as a Magni 3, and I would also say that it sounds better than a Magni 3 in my opinion. I think the Magni 3 has kind of a steely, weird noise. It's got a weird filter thingy on there. It sounds like there's a filter. That the Magni 3 makes everything sound too analytical, in my opinion, whereas the R6 is just a bit more musical in that regard. It's more neutral, and it's more enjoyable than it would be on the Magni. Although the Magni can definitely drive the vast majority of headphones without struggling at all. Whereas the R6 will, you know, not every headphone will work, especially if it's high impedance and low sensitivity. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions about the R6, let me know. I know this video has been a long time coming, and I don't, why is this thing sideways? I mean, is this sideways or is this my computer? Or my phone? No, it was my phone, mostly. Thank you so much. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for all your comments and your suggestions, and I appreciate all the effort that you people put in to watching my videos and helping me get better. I thought this was going to be shorter. It's not shorter. I thought it was going to be like 30 minutes, and then I really got into it, and I thought, oh, okay, well, let's just do the whole thing. Why not? Why not? Now, one interesting thing that I had, before I close this off, one interesting thing that I had, it was a notification today in my mail stating that the Hiby R6 is on sale today for $3.99 on Amazon. Is that true? It is true. Ladies and gentlemen, the Hiby R6 for today is on sale for $3.99. And the MSRP is $6.99. I thought it was $5.99, and I've seen it at $5.99 brand new on eBay and other sellers. So there's that. Why? The R6, $3.99. Okay, so now here's the thing. At $3.99, I don't know how long this is going to last, but at $3.99, this is a good buy. I have no complaints, no qualms about recommending this at $3.99 for all the functionality of this player, the sound that you get, the UI, the quickness of and the responsiveness of this entire machine is phenomenal. And at $3.99, it is absolutely worth a recommendation. There are plenty of other options that you have out there, and clearly tastes will differ. But if you're in the market for a good, clean amp DAC portable, good digital audio player, then at $3.99 you are hard pressed to find something as user-friendly, as fully featured, and as ubiquitously available as the R6. And with that, I will say, have a wonderful night. Thank you so much for being my subscribers. If you have any questions, please let me know. And have a wonderful, I always say wonderful. Have a wonderful Friday evening and a great weekend. Thank you so much. Have a good night.